Okay, let's officially begin. A warm welcome to all CGS Labs users. Thank you for joining us today. In this webinar, we will show you the latest features and improvements included in the new software release, which was officially published this week. Before we start, please note that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available to all participants after the event. To keep the webinar running smoothly, all participants are muted during the presentation, but you are kindly invited to ask questions in the chat at any time. We will collect them throughout the webinar and answer them during the Q&A session at the end. So today you will be joined by me, Clement, and Tian. Together we will present the main new features and improvements available on the 2027 release of Plateia, Aquaterra, and Ferrovia. We have prepared a lot of great new features and improvements, and we are excited to share them with you today. So many of these improvements were inspired directly by your feedback, so we would like to thank you all for your suggestions, ideas, and comments. Your input helps us to improve our software and develop features that make your daily work easier and more efficient. We are very happy to have such an active user community, and we truly appreciate your support. So we will begin with Plateia. So Clement, the floor is yours.
Welcome everyone. So let me just share my screen and we will begin. So okay. So for today we will look at our newest release. So what is new in the CGS Labs 27.0 or our major release, which was released actually yesterday. And you already have an option to update to the newest version. So for today's webinar, we will look at what we have improved, changed, and fixed, where you can find the release notes and all the information. I will show you also all the features that we added live, and also Petra and Jan will show for their products. So in the new version, the CGS Labs 27, we now supported the latest Autodesk release, so AutoCAD or Civil 3D 27, but we also support everything from 2020 to the newest one. And for BricsCAD, as we are accustomed to here, we support the latest 3 versions that are released. Since CGS Labs is now under the Transout brand, we also updated or changed the installation process a little bit. We included the Transoft installation package. Actually, the workflow is the same as we had before, maybe just a little bit different visuals and checking of the things. Okay, and then if we go right into the features and the improvements. So first of all, I would like to show you what we did with the standard compliance check. So we added another option how to visualize or how to check if some design is according to the standard or technical specification. As you know, Plateia and also Ferrovia both have localized, both are localized to different regions, different markets, and different like countries have different design standards. So this means they have different maybe minimum and maximum values for radiuses, lengths of spirals, maybe they even have different design speeds, and all of those is checked within the Plateia or Ferrovia product. Here we, in the right upper corner, we can see some things that are maybe defined. There are also other things, and I can show you this now in the software. So here I have a Civil 27 version with CGS installed. I will just hide this image and I can go and create a new alignment. So if we are using tangent polygon option, we can select the points for tangents, and we can now see the preview of where the alignment will be. So if I in a position that it's maybe not within these critical parameters, our preview will show you that this is the case, and that you should maybe be careful and place it somewhere else. So for example, I can put it here and I can see for all these vertices or tangents what are the minimum values. So for example, here we can see the minimum value for arc radius is 900. This is because we are actually on a highway category, and we can see what would be the arc radius if we would end this alignment. So this is not good, for example, in this case. And if we conclude it, if we end the alignment, it will also show you these warnings that we had before, that the design is not according to these critical parameters. So where you can see those parameters are in these alignment managers in the category. And here you can see just a few, for example, in this case, where this is checked with the radius and the length of the spirals. Then we also have some parameters for vertical alignment design, and yeah, different countries have different these parameters. So if we go and maybe choose another or a different category of the road with a different design speed, and maybe also like move these PIs or these vertices, we can see that now this is changed or the railway, and now we have different values. So as you can see, this works with drawing with a new alignment or also when editing this tangent polygon. Okay, and maybe one more thing to note here is if we create a new alignment, and let's create another alignment here. You can also disable these previews, and here you can see in the command line the preview with the R. You can disable, so if you don't want to have this viewed, then you have an option for that. Okay, the same option is also available in profile view. So let me just show you. If we create a profile view for this X is 0 and place it somewhere here. And then when we draw profile line, which is very similar to tangent polygon, you can see that if we go a bit too low, this will pop up. So the maximum value for longitudinal slope is 6%, and it's checking every time the mouse is moved, so you can clearly see if you should move something or not. So just another option here. And the same thing is also available in this command. So if we create another alignment, you can disable this preview if you have like too many vertices at one point and there will be too many errors, then you can just disable this. So something quickly to see if what you're doing is according to the standard. And now let's move on. So we are checking the tangent length, the curve radius and length, and the spiral parameter and length. Then if you go onwards, we will check the CGS label settings. So in the previous version, the 26.1, we added this interface or a new dialog box where you can change some of the settings for the labels. In the previous version, we only had for the main elements and profile labels or the sample line labels, but now we have added a much more, 5 more labels on this interface. So for the design speed, for the station control, for the axis labels, which is name and stations, for the projection lines, hectometric labels. We didn't just move all the settings in this new dialog window, but we also added some new settings, for example, for coloring, for justification or the placement of the texts, for different links of the lines and stuff like that. This change also means that this, what you set here, is like active for the current alignment, and you can have different settings for different alignments. So if I show you here, so now we have this axis 0 and axis 1, and if you go into the layout or the first ribbon tab that we have here in Plateia, Ferrovia or Aquaterra, we have now this bigger command, label settings. And here we can set all the parameters for different labels. So for example, here we have main elements. I can set them on the right side, apply this, and you can see that it already was refreshed. We can change the coloring, for example. We can change the length of the lines. So for example, 150, and everything is updated instantly. And we can also, add information. So for example, we want this label here also, and maybe the length of each main element that we have here. And this is quickly updated, as we can see. We can also change, for example, the station format of these main elements, so the start and end point. We can choose how many different decimal places we will use and stuff like that. So very easy to handle. So now this list is expanded. So we have now on the list also the design speed. So we can maybe change the length of it, the text height, for example, and this is very much more easier to do now. Then we have the station control, which means this is related to the station control in the alignment. Some different station, for example, here, which means that from this point on, we can start with another station or with another label for this station. And as we can see, now we have started from 0, and all the other labels are also changed accordingly. Here we can also change what kind of parameters we want to use, and this is about it. And then maybe the bigger next one is the hectometric stations. These are these are usually used. So the hectometric station, now we have some different options here. So first of all, we need to set the interval. So even though we are calling these hectometric stations, these can actually be placed on any kind of interval. So I will say 100 for 100 meters and click apply. And we can see that we already have these main kind of labels here. We can also change the format of these labels. So for example, if we want to have hectometric stations like this, and then we also have some other sizes, so the minor size and the stick size, which means that we can also place these kind of length labels in between. So for example, we have now 100 meters, but if you want to also see the 50 meters in between, we can do that. And we can change, for example, the size of it. So let's make it a bit more clear here. So now we have those kind of labels, and we can also set it like for each 20 meters, and you can see where it is. So very easy to do. And we can maybe also select how much the offset should be. We can define it by value or from the drawing. And we can also change the text style and the justification. So for example, if you want to move this and rotate it 90 degrees, we can do that. And it's automatically updated. Okay. Now what else we have are the axis labels. So we have two kind of labels here. So one is the axis name. We can activate this, which means that we can see the name at the start of this alignment. So maybe it's easier to search for it if you have a lot of alignments in the drawing. And then the next thing is there are also axis stations. So these are the 21R1 command, which gives you a station value in any kind of point you are searching for. So, for example, I can do this. I can change the format of how this is written and all of the other parameters. What is also different is that these labels now are on different layers. So for example, even the design speed and the state have their own layers now, which makes them easier to kind of edit. So the same thing is true for these station labels. Before they were on the layer of sample lines labels, but now they have their own unique layer. And this also gives like another thing that we changed. So for example, now if we move this label or this alignment, this will also update this axis or the stationing, because if we just left them where they were, they wouldn't be correct. And now they are actually moved with the alignment. So they stay on the appropriate station as they should be. And then the last one are the projection lines. So this is another maybe specific thing is in Plateia or Plateia, Ferrovia and Aquaterra, you can create any kind of polyline and project it to the profile view, to the cross sections. How you do that is by defining the polyline in the layout and using this command to give it some kind of a name. So for example, I will select this polyline and I will write, I don't know, projection line. And here, what is different here is that we don't have option to click apply. This apply means that it will only be applied to the current or active alignment. But these projection lines are not tied to some alignment, some specific alignment, but they can be used for all the alignments. So that's why we only have these options active. And for example, if we want to, I don't know, have middle right, for example, here, we can click apply to all axes, which means that all the projection lines, all the labels for the projection lines will be applied with these new parameters. So yeah, we are adding new and new labels to this interface, and most of them are now here in the dialog. Now let's go on. What we did in Plateia is also improved this intersection command a little bit. So within Plateia, you can create an intersection between two alignments, and it will automatically draw you all the fillets and maybe also give you the profile lines, the profile views for those fillets. But what you couldn't do before is maybe select in which point you want to create the intersection. So if you had two alignments that intersected with each other in multiple points, like we can see here, you could only create one intersection. And then the other thing that was missing was that you could use this intersection command only in 3D. So if you had terrain data and if you had profile views and defined super elevation, only then you were able to use this intersection command. But now we also implemented an option to use the 2D without any like elevation data. So if I show you here, we have this example. And if we go into the traffic ribbon tab, we can see the commands for this. So the intersection command now has two new options. So one is the intersection point. So you can select, we have here 2 points, but you could also have more. But this is rarely the case. And here we have an option to draw the intersection, 3D intersection, or we can disable it and it will not search for the existing ground. So now let's move to point 1, which is this one, and just check the 3 and 4 fillets can be seen here. And we can also go into the point 2 and we can see the preview also here. So I think this is the first one and the last one. Now, if I go back to the first one, click OK, we can see that the new fillets were created. We can see the horizontal alignment or the main elements that were created here. And there was no like prompt to put a point for profile views. So we can do the same for the other intersection point. We can draw those fillets and create this intersection here or the new alignments. So we can also use the edit command and the refresh command. So for example, we have the edit intersection option for the intersection 1. And we can change maybe these arcs, the radiuses, for example, something like this. And we could also in this edit command like add, if we added like terrain data afterhand, we could also do the 3D intersection. So for example, now we can edit those radiuses, click OK, and the fillets will be redrawn with the new parameters. Okay. Then let's go on. One minor thing I can show you is that we have added an option to go back for the tangent polygon, which was missing before. And we can go back one step or multiple steps, and we can use this for new alignments and also for existing ones. So while we are editing. So I can go back here and maybe go into this axis 1. So we can actually continue this tangent polygon or this alignment. So how we do that is by using this command again for drawing and selecting this polygon to keep drawing tangentially. So if you want to go back, we have an option just to go back, and you can see the previous design and the new preview that we are using. And once we place the new position, click enter, then all these main elements will be erased and new ones will be created for this part. So quite useful to do, especially like if you are creating a new alignment here. So let's do that. And we can see that we have placed something that it's not up to standard. We can go back and just place it somewhere where it would be more appropriate. Okay. Then another thing is projection lines. So we have an option to create projection points, for example, in the cross sections, where we define the elevation and the offset from alignment. And then we can use this data to go back into the layout and create a 2D or 3D polyline. Now we have added another option to align between the cross sections. And there is an option to use no aligning between the cross sections, aligning against the axis or against the lanes. So individual lanes in the Plateia alignment, you can choose it and it will align through that. So let me just show you how this looks. So this is maybe one of the examples that one of our designers showed us, or one of our users. So here we have this intersection point defined in this embankment on the lower part where it meets the terrain. Let's do the same thing also for the right side. So let me just show you here. Let's create another embankment. And how to create a projection line is just use this command and give it a name. So let's give it, this will be on the right side on all of the cross sections. Now we can go back into the layout and use this draw projection lines. We now can see that the data has been read, and let's leave it like this. Click OK, and now we get two new lines here. So this is just kind of a representation of what it could be from the cross sections. As we don't have any information how this is done in between, we can see that this is quite strange here. So it kind of wobbles, which is because it's trying to align to how the axis is going. So we have an arc on this axis, and we have defined the elevation and offset on each of the cross sections. So in between, it actually wants to keep it that way, keep it the same kind of offset, and because this is doing against the axis, it kind of looks strange. So now we have added another option here to align, which means that we can use no align option, or we can maybe use the left lane, because we know that this offset is actually according to the left lane. So let's click OK. And now we get quite better representation of how this would actually look in real life. We can also see the right lane, which is actually quite good because it's according to the axis, which is going in the same direction. But we could also maybe, if we have a different kind of thing, we could align it to the right lane, for example. So this is the same if you're doing 2D or 3D polyline, it doesn't matter. And it solves this kind of issues or this kind of cases. Okay. Then we made quite a few improvements in our rescale functionality. We fixed quite a lot of issues, but we also added one thing is we added rescale labels multiplier. So the scaling of CGS labels was also implemented in previous versions, but you could only scale it how much like the difference in the scale was. So you couldn't use your own value or your own multiplier. And there was sometimes hard to do, like you would want to have bigger profile view, but smaller labels, and it was harder to do, not intuitive. So now we added another option here, and I can show you in our example. So here we have profile view with kind of a lot of data. So we have the profile line, we have the super elevations defined, we have this information about the roadway width and the stationing and all of that. And now we can go into the profile ribbon tab. Under the draw profile view, we have this command here for rescaling, which will recognize the active profile view. It will read the scaling that it has. And we can use this scale CGS Labs command, CGS Labels command, which will open up this dialog. And if we are now like writing new scale, you can also see that it will change this number automatically. So you can already see. So if you're going to the scale of 2000, this means that it will be shorter. So twice as short as it is now, which means that also the labels will be scaled down. So by 0.5. So now, for example, if I do 500, this means that the labels will be scaled 2 times. And we can see that. So now we can also change the labels independently. So maybe we are not happy with that. We don't want to change the scaling of the profile view. We can just write the new multiplier for the labels and click OK, and the labels will be changed. So you don't have to do any workaround like scaling back and forth, which is quite more easier to do now. So if you don't want to scale, if you want to leave the labels as they are, we can just disable this check and use the scaling for the profile view. Okay. Then what we also did is we improved a little bit how these alignments that intersect with itself work. These kind of cases are roundabouts or maybe some parking lots or something like that. And this is more of a fix than anything else, but I can show you that we did some improvements here. So for example, if I go here and let's just open Plateia ribbon tab. So here we have alignment, which represents the roundabout, and some kind of a closed loop. So the end point is touching with somewhere in between its own alignment. So now if you go in this alignment manager and just check if you want to create the profile view for the roundabout, this will not be correctly read. So we had some issues. So this is the 26.1 version where endpoint and the start point were at the same exact position. These profiles were not correctly read. So this is something that we improved. So now if I can show in the latest version, so we created this roundabout with the CGS tool in the traffic ribbon. We can now create profile views. So let's do that, or the sample lines. And we can project this into the surface. And now we can create the profile view, and we can see that all the profiles or the sample lines are now read correctly. We don't need to do any manual work to trim the alignment or stuff like that. We can define the profile line and we can create the cross sections. So a lot easier to do than before. The same thing is also in this kind of cases. We can create the sample lines. We can also scale these kind of labels here. And everything is now read actually better than before. So just a quick update here. And then if we move forward, in this newer release, we managed to fix some of the issues that we had on the BricsCAD 26. Some of you probably had some issues when opening the software in BricsCAD 26 where it would crash because of some updates from the BricsCAD side. Now in this newer version, you will not have these issues. We also fixed some of the issues with refreshing. So if you're refreshing profile views or the layout, you maybe had some like this gray UI. Now this is not the case anymore. Then we have a number of changes and fixes. I will not go through each of them. I will just point out maybe the more important ones. One of the things we changed is the line type scaling. So if you used commands in the profile view, like calculating super elevations, reading the data, refreshing, stuff like that, this line type scale was defined to 0.1, which in some cases messed up the user's other line types that they had, like in the layout. Now we are not changing those anymore, and we have changed the definitions of some CGS line types that were used here. Then there were also a number of fixes that we can see from the layout, profile view to the cross sections. But yeah, I will not go over this, but you can read them in our what's new document, which is already available online, and you can see what we changed. So now I would hand over the presentation to Jan with AutoSign and Aquaterra.
Yes, hello from my side as well. I will just quickly show you some enhancements we did in AutoSign and Aquaterra. So I hope you see the screen. And yes, first we will start with AutoSign, where besides some bug fixes, we have enhanced the delete functionality. So now you can delete the sign using just the delete functionality or just using the delete key on your keyboard. So let's see. it works like that. You can previously I had to select all the elements and delete it, but now you can do it by using delete functionality, or you just select elements of the sign and hit delete on your keyboard. And that was actually the only thing we have done for AutoSign, besides some bug fixes that you can read about in the release notes. Okay, and now Aquaterra. In the previous version, 2026, we have enhanced the export to HECRAS, and now we did the same thing for Mike software, which is another software for hydraulic analysis that we support. And data is now read from the drawing automatically instead of having to export 3 separate text files that then join into one. So now you only need to start the functionality and it reads from drawing automatically. And this makes every geometry export much easier and faster. So in Mike, you can also define the marker. So there is one marker that defines either river alignment or the deepest point, and you can define this in Mike, but we also have set Aquaterra, so you can define it there as well. So even before the export, you can select what you want to mark, or river alignment or deepest point, and this will be also recognized by Mike. And then you can also select how many decimal places you want your results to be stored in. So here we can see that we have 2 terrains in this drawing, and similar as previously, when we enhanced the export to HECRAS functionality, we did this for Mike. Here you can see everything is read from the current drawing already, and then you only select one of these 2 terrains. You can name the section differently or just use the same one. You select the marker and then you define file name and file path. Select the decimal places for the results, and now it's already exported in the file that you can use in Mike software. So this, and there is another functionality for Aquaterra that is also in Plateia and Ferrovia. So the point report has been improved to now automatically display all the attributes that are available on the selected points. Previously, you only had X, Y, and Z attributes, and now you can also have different attributes as labels and different point-specific information. All these attributes are there by default, which makes your workflow much faster. But you can still use custom reports where you can exclude these attributes if you don't want them. So yeah, this link leads you to the release notes, or you can scan the QR code. And that was all from my side, and I'm handing it over to Petra now.
Thank you, Jan. Just a second. Okay, so at the beginning of the webinar, Clement already presented several features that are also available in Ferrovia. So those include the new compliance check for horizontal alignment profiles, the added back option for the tangent polygon, improved rescaling features, and several other improvements. I will now continue with the new features that are more specific to Ferrovia. And at the end of presentation, I will show the improved land XML export, which is also available in Plateia and Aquaterra as well. So please stand with us until the end of the webinar, because I will also show you where you can find the latest tutorials, videos, and other useful learning materials. So the first improvement relates to the content editor dialog. So we have introduced several improvements to make it more user-friendly, more efficient. So one of the new features is the content editor preview, which allows users to see how the selected station format will appear before applying it. This makes it much easier to compare formats and choose the most appropriate one. Then another improvement is the automatic saving and restoration of settings, where when users reopen the dialog box, all the previous settings are still there, so they can continue working without having to set everything up again. And then finally, users reported an issue that occurred when the starting station was not 0. In certain cases, duplicate station values were generated. This issue has now been resolved, and yeah, it works correctly now. Then the next improvement focuses on vertical label management. So users often need to move labels from one side of the alignments to the other in order to improve readability or make better use of the available space. In previous versions, however, this process was not straightforward and required several manual steps. So if I just show you this video from a previous version, you will see that labels had to be manually rotated and repositioned to the opposite side of the axis. Okay, so you needed to select everything first, so it takes you some time. Then you have to mirror on the other side, and then you also had to do another step to also mirror those texts, because you can see it was not mirrored correctly at first time. So yeah, then another limitation of this was also that after manually moving or mirroring a label, the connection to the original label behavior was lost. Okay, so if you refresh the alignments, you will see, okay, the original label reappear on its original location, while the manually mirrored label was no longer updated to its values. So this results in duplicates, labels, additional manual work, and you also needed to check, okay, are those data now correct or not? So there were a lot of limitations. So to address these issues, we introduced several new capabilities in the latest release. So after you run the vertical labels, it opens a dialog box where you can select the label and you can just mirror it on the other side. And if you want, you can also restore it back to the original location. So with these options, we eliminate the manual work, prevent duplicate labels, and ensure that all labels continue to update correctly throughout the design process. And also, if you now refresh, it will stay on the latest defined position. Then the next improvement introduced a new option for generating 3D rail polylines, allowing users to create either a track center line or a profile line, depending on their needs. So the center line represents the center of the track, while the profile follows the lower rail. Okay. In addition, the naming has been improved, so making it much clearer in the dialog what type of the geometry will be created, and users can now immediately understand, okay, what each option represents. And so with this, we eliminate any confusion during the selection process. So yeah, let me quickly demonstrate how it works. If I run the command, you can see that now I have more options. And if I choose that I will draw all 3D polylines, you will see that, okay, here at the beginning, we are in the tangent sections. So of course, both 3D polylines overlap in this area. if I select them, you can see that they are created on a different layer, so it's easy to see which one is which. In areas with cants, with, let's say, super elevation, those two 3D polylines are located at different elevations. This is because the profile follows the lower rail, while the center line represents the center of the track, and it's calculated from both rails. So now it's much clearer to understand how it works, and you have both options you can choose from. Then another new improvement relates to the longitudinal profile. So the longitudinal profile now automatically displays a graphical marker for each hectometric station value. So previously, hectometric stations were shown only as text without a visual indicator of their position along the profile. So users often had to manually measure the exact location in the drawing and then manually insert a marker. These improvements make station position immediately visible, saving you time, simplifying the workflow, and the marker also updates automatically when the profile is regenerated and can be enabled or disabled in the longitudinal profile settings. Then, in addition to what I just showed you, we are also developing a fully integrated digital workflow for railway track realignment, designed specifically for railway maintenance operators. The workflow connects data collection, analysis, and preparation of corrective measures into a single process. So the approach is based on collecting measurements data using specialized measurement trolleys, importing the raw data directly into the Ferrovia, and then automatically analyzing deviations to prepare correction data for damping machines. Direct data processing reduces the time between measurements and execution, helping to shorten track closures and to reduce manual work. So yeah, after the measurements are completed in the field, the next step is to import the data into Ferrovia. For this purpose, we introduced a new tool that supports the import of RRR files containing raw measurements, data collected by Leica sensors mounted on track measurement trolleys. The sensors measures both the left and right rails. This allows users to impact measurement data directly into Ferrovia without any additional processing steps. This is particularly important because track closures are, often limited to a very short time window. To make the most of the available time, measurements are frequently performed using a split team approach, where one team surveys the track geometry while another surveys the reference points. By enabling the direct import of raw measurements data, Ferrovia eliminates several manual processing steps and helps shorten the time between field measurements and the preparation of corrective actions. So yeah, in this new command is used to import RRR data from Leica sensors directly to Ferrovia. So after running the command, we first select this file. In the dialog box, you can see all the measurements data. They are displayed in a clear and organized way. And if necessary, you can exclude certain measurements, for example, if they were recorded only for testing purposes. In the next step, you select the orientation file, and then you can recalculate those data. So that means that based on the input data, the tool automatically calculates the coordinates and generates the corresponding XYZ points. The result can be either be exported or inserted directly into the DWG drawing, and in the drawing, this data is created as CGS Labs points. So yeah, they are representing the measured points of the left and rail, and also the track center line. Then, after the data is merged, the measured geometry can be compared with the existing alignment, or a new reference alignment can be reconstructed from measured points using regression methods when documentation is missing. Based on this analysis, correction values required to restore the track geometry that can be calculated. And yeah, for the regression analysis, we use the standard Ferrovia workflow to create an alignment that best fit the measured field data. And yeah, similar process then also applied to generate the longitudinal profile. And once created, both the alignment profile that can be then further refined, edited using, the standard Ferrovia design tools. And then after we have the final results, we can also export them to the different formats. And one of the supported formats is non-XML format, for which we also introduce several additional improvements in the latest release. So previously, we already supported the export of alignment, super elevations, longitudinal profile, but now you can also export cross sections, and this is something that's also available in Plateia and Aquaterra, and then you have a format that you can exchange with others, and this improves interoperability with other software solutions as well as field equipment, so making data exchange easier and more efficient throughout the entire workflow. So in addition to all the new features I presented today, we have also implemented a lot of different smaller improvements, bug fixes that are also, of course, very important. You can find a detailed overview of all these changes in our What's New documents that are available on our website. And that concludes the overview of the new features and the latest versions. But if you have any questions, if you don't know where you can find What's New document, just write them here in the chat, in the Q&A chat option, and we can then answer you. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite you to explore our online resources when we offer a different range of free content for our users. So on our help center, which you can access directly from our website or from our software solutions, you can find tutorials for all the products. Some of them also include PDF instructions, while others are features with video tutorials. And if you want, you can also watch all of our previous webinars for free. And if you're searching for more video tutorials, they are also available on our YouTube channel. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Before we finish, I will just take a moment to check whether there are any questions. So I can see something. Yes. Okay, first question, thank you, is do you have add the labels to more easy pull down menu for editing, but you have just a second.
Yeah, I can see it, Petra.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of parameters in some cases, but each of the parameters has its own preview tooltip, so you can see what you're actually changing, and you also have this dynamic preview, so it's not that hard, I guess. So I think these new options for labels will be useful. Yeah, roundabouts are still what they are, but we have it in our plans to improve those functions that we have. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Maria, for your question. And nice message about that. It looks much easier right now. Thank you. Okay, there are not. Yeah. Okay. So there are no further questions. So we will wrap up today's webinar. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us today. If any questions come up later, feel free to get in touch with us and yeah, just send us an email. We will be happy to help you. And we will also very appreciate if you will answer a few questions. So after this webinar will be finished, you will get a survey with, I don't know, 2-3 questions just about which version you are using right now, and we will really appreciate if you can answer it. So yeah, thank you once again. Have a great day, and yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.